Welcome to the Strategy Doctor Show, the show that is the performance-enhancing drug for your company's bottom line. Today's show is a mastermind interview episode, and I interview Tonya Kinlow, founder of the Airbnb of the food market, UGottaEat. UGottaEat provides homemade meals without a hassle and markets itself as the chef in your pocket. UGottaEat is dedicated to connecting friends, families, and communities with home-cooked meals and meals made from scratch through local home cooks, chefs, and caterers. Here's my interview with Tonya Kinlow. We have another great mastermind interview with you today with a sharing economy startup, a food sharing business, and you guys know how much I love food. The company's name is UGottaEat, and its founder, Ms. Tonya Kinlow, is a finance executive with 25 years of corporate experience. And now this corporate executive has turned entrepreneur. She's always been a food enthusiast and promotes compassion and sharing in her life. Ms. Kinlow, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And before we jump in, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you, since you started out in the corporate world, but then jumped into my favorite part of the world, which is food, and decided to launch a sharing economy business.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I am happy to be here. So, yeah, actually, it's funny. 2 years ago, this past week, I left corporate America. And so I have been an entrepreneur, and I just learned a new term for it. It's a lifestyle entrepreneur, because when I got into food with UGottaEat, it's really more about the lifestyle. And my husband is a chef, and we had talked about opening up a restaurant as I would ease out of corporate America and, looking forward and ahead. We came up through a series of conversations to the type of restaurant we wanted to have. And, me being in business, I was reading something one way we were going on vacation, and really was struck by the notion that you have to have technology involved in anything that you do. And so I came up with the concept of sharing food, like everyone could be an entrepreneur, or everyone could, not even necessarily entrepreneur wasn't the word, but just how do you make everyone have this great restaurant idea where you can share and your sense of community in the restaurant. And so from there, the idea of UGottaEat was born, and it didn't take me long. I was still working at the time. It didn't take me long, maybe a month or two, to leave my job and start doing this full time. So I took sort of this love of food and wanting to share and my business sense, and I started UGottaEat.
So there were no nerves, there was no anxious moments when, after 25 years of having a corporate environment, that corporate water cooler, there weren't any nerves in making that switch to building your own business?
Well, there were absolutely nerves. And even like in this past couple of weeks, I'm about to make a pivot. And there's certainly some fear around that. I have been in finance, a lot of restructurings happening in my company, a lot of people getting laid off, really just a lot of the job. You start questioning, is this the grind that I want to do for the next X number of years until I retire? So probably starting a year or two before I left corporate, I was probably getting a little restless. When you wake up one morning and say, "Is this it?" Right. So I was getting a little restless at work. So it made the decision when you sort of come into your purpose, when you find something that's like, aha, it makes it easier to make that decision. It certainly makes it easier. It's not ever an easy, because I was an executive at my company. I had great benefits and salary, and I was used to the lifestyle, but I was used to the lifestyle, but I wasn't necessarily as happy, as enthusiastic as I was, obviously, when I started out as a young analyst. So I would say that, the first fear was not having a steady paycheck. I mean, that was horrifying, especially being in finance. That was horrifying. So I sat at the table. I went through all my bills, took some time, talked to my husband, tried to make sure he was comfortable. And I figured, I was like, I'll give myself a couple of years to really make this business plan, to make this happen. 2 to 3 years, I'm thinking I'm going to be rolling, like this is such a great idea. I'm going to be just rolling. And so we can do it. I have enough saved. We'll go ask family for money. And I just did it. So it was frightening, but it was also one of the most liberating things I have ever done.
Now, you mentioned that you're in the middle of a pivot, but before we drill down on that pivot, let's start at the beginning. What original business problem were you solving with UGottaEat? Yeah.
So the problem that I was trying to solve was that for families to get back to eating homemade meals, which were healthier for them. So I wanted people to have convenience and to get healthier by eating homemade food. And the way to do that, because people are so busy, was to share. So it was a bit of a mouthful, but it really had all three components. And so advisors and everyone was like, you got to get this down into a simple concept. And I don't know that it is any simpler than that. I think it solves a lot of world problems. But that's where I started. I wanted the sense of social connection because that was the model. My restaurant vision was a local restaurant. People would come in, they'd know our names, we'd know them, local artists, local food, sustainability, but that was going to be a brick and mortar restaurant. So I took all the same things and said, if I have to apply technology, how can I turn this, a brick and mortar restaurant, into an exponential type of company? And it really struck me like lightning. It was like, like Airbnb, like a sharing system where everyone can share, everyone can become their own restaurant. Everyone can sell or share with everyone else, and we can think how quickly we could eliminate hunger, and families could get back together and eat at night if everyone sort of shared their excess or cooked. Shared the burden of cooking. So I cook one night, you cook another night, our neighbor down the street cooks another. And that way, we've gotten through the week and had homemade food all week, but we only have to cook once or twice. So I literally wanted it to be the sharing platform. So that's where we started. That was the problem. The problem is we're eating too many processed foods in the name of convenience, and we're becoming a chronically sick society, diabetes, overweight, everything. So the more we try to do these things, it's amazing. The more we try to focus on food, we have more gyms, we have all types of diets out there, everything, and we're still getting fatter. And so I really felt like UGottaEat, this solution would solve things. The problem is that people cannot sell out of their homes, right? The biggest question I get is, how do I know they're clean? Or how do I know someone who's cooking and sharing with me doesn't have 10 cats? And so that's the trust piece, just on the sharing, a barrier to break. And also, you can't sell from your home. So how am I going to set this up so that people can actually help one another? So yes, it started out as a social application, and it still is social, but I think the focus has changed a little bit. So that was where I started, and then I had to go about figuring out how to break these problems. So they can't sell out of their house, and people don't trust anyone. So this is truly a change in lifestyle. This is trying to wake people up to share and basically make the world a better place, right? So we feed each other and we eliminate hunger and we become social. That's and healthier. So that sounds like a recipe to happiness for me. So this is what I'm trying to do. So I worked on that and came up finally with the platform that UGottaEat is a social network where people can share food, and cooks and chefs can also make money by selling food as a UGottaEat chef. Now, on the selling side, as a UGottaEat chef, you have to be vetted. So to become a chef, one of our chefs, you have to have food safety handling, have insurance, and use a certified or a commercial kitchen that's right for your for what you're cooking, because bakers can use a different type than, say, if you're cooking meat and cheese. So those are all the things that restaurants need, basically. So I kept it legal, which meant we wanted to get people to use more commercial kitchens. So not to cook out of your home, but if you're really interested in making money and cooking homemade food, then, we'll connect with commercial kitchens, and you can, the benefit to you is that we'll publicize your business, and we'll showcase your food. You'll be able to make money through the UGottaEat app. So there's some marketing that we'll do for you, and it's an incremental, it's an incremental sales chain if you happen to already be a restaurant. So that was the cook chef side. It allowed people to make money, but still then there's the sharing piece. So if people come on to share and there's no one else when they're sharing, or their friends and family aren't sharing, they still would have access to buy food from cooks and chefs that are committed to the same things and the mission and principles of UGottaEat, which is eating healthy, good, fresh-made food, not processed. That's another commitment that all the chefs have to have. So aside from the technical pieces, they have to commit that they are cooking food homemade and from scratch. So that's the business model. It has two pieces, which is, again, the cooks and chefs who can sell, and then anyone can post food to share for free. And again, so that idea still is you and your neighbors, or if you had leftovers. For instance, I went to a wellness event. UGottaEat sponsored. Saturday was Global Wellness Day, and the food bank had left a lot of food, a lot more food than people who would come out. So I took a few extra bags, thinking I'll give my mom one, because there was great vegetables in here. I didn't want it to go to waste. And then when I came back, I remembered some students had moved in the complex for the summer. It's like 6 college students from out of the country, like they're on a foreign exchange. And I took them I took them 2 bags of the vegetables so that they could have to cook, because, I'm like, this is what it's all about. So it costs you nothing. It keeps food from going to waste. And this was fresh food. These were made from local farms. So that's what I'm trying to get everyone to do. And so that's the premise that we have now. The pivot.
Before we jump on that pivot, I want to drill down a little bit more on your current model.
Yes.
I love the fact that you are the Airbnb of food sharing. This is fascinating to me that you're helping people with excess capacity like Airbnb, market that to the general public. And then the social element is just outstanding. You're right. Food waste and the fact that people are not consuming high nutrient meals is not only causing physical effects, but, in many cases, sometimes mental, if you're not getting the right types of food. So it is getting to a point where it is an epidemic.
Let me interject one thing. I just want to add on to that, because that is the food piece. The social piece, too, that I don't want to get lost, because even in this day and age, and we're seeing the suicide rate, these recent suicides that happened in the news, we're seeing a divisive country, we're seeing, us versus them and all types of places, that I think it's such the right time to focus on the social aspect, where something of belonging, that brings people together so that people don't feel alone. I think there's a lot. So while it's the food is the main piece, right? The obvious, we have to eat. We also need that social piece, which I really want to encourage people to focus on as well.
Yeah, that's huge. I was going to go there as well. There's a startup in China called Home Cook, and they ran into some of the same problems that you have in terms of people cooking from their homes and selling those meals. And they tweaked the model to focus on the social side, to match people together, because you have so many business people that have to travel hundreds of miles for their job, and they're tired of eating alone. They want a family atmosphere because of the mental strain of working 10 to 12 hours a day and going back to a corporate apartment. They want a family to eat with. And so the platform became, for lack of a better term, a social, I won't say dating, but a social matchmaking platform where people with food, older couples, empty nesters, who wanted to relive the life of having a younger person in the house would post the meals that they were preparing that day, and people could come in, find them and share community as much as the food. So I agree with you. In the world we're living in now, it is absolutely a necessity. Under your current model, how do your users find the people that your chefs and your cooks who are marketing the food?
So they would just find them on my app. So the food is posted on my app. So the way the app works is you have to log in as a user. So, and put your zip code. And that way it already has the geo-fencing and it'll know where you are. So it defaults to show you within 25 miles of you who is on the app, who has already posted a meal. So if there's no one, we're launching in Cleveland. So that's where the meals are. So, and we have a radius, like if you open it up to 500 miles, you could see. But really, we know if the distance is key, because you got to get your food. So right now, it's you would see chefs in Cleveland on there who have gone in and they've become a chef. So when you want to become a chef to actually sell food, you would go through the process. You click the Become a Chef button on the app, and it would take you through a series of steps. So to get your financial information, get your vetting, someone gets in touch with you and make sure we get all your licensing. And then you can post meals after we turn you on. You can post meals directly on the app for whatever amount of money that you decide. And then people who go on the app, so we have to bring in the users, the cooks and the eaters. But when people go on the app, they will be able to see the meals that were posted. So it could be, if it's an individual chef, they'll see that it's the chef or the restaurant or whomever. But the point would be to use the app to always find a good universe of healthy foods that you can purchase. And then if you did not want to become a chef, you don't hit the button, but you want to share, you can just open up the app anywhere. Like you could do it today where you are. Anyone can do it where they are. Open up the app and post a meal and what I'm encouraging them to invite their friends and family, like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 people to start. And that's how you as a group, as a family, a unit, a community would start sharing food, sharing your meals or planning ahead or whatever you have left today from yesterday. And you'd be able to share for free.
So this model and the way the platform is constructed sounds like it could be easily scalable to a number of communities or around the globe. But it sounds like you have to solve kind of that chicken and egg problem of getting users and cooks and chefs.
Yes.
How are you attacking that problem?
Absolutely. I can't tell you. It's so funny, Mark, that you said that. I've been using that term for the last 2 months. Like I am literally in this chicken and egg conundrum. Well, also on the cook chef side, when we designed the app, it was mainly for these independent cooks and chefs. Remember, I want everyone to be able to cook and help feed everyone. So it was designed independent cooks and chefs, but who's been coming on more is small mom and pop restaurants. And it's interesting how small changes, like a restaurant versus an individual in a commercial kitchen, has a lot of implications for how the app was designed. So the app wasn't designed to take an order that's available for 8 hours. It's straight between 8 and 5, right? It was designed to take orders at one specific time because you would be a home cook or So we're making tweaks now. So the app works more seamlessly for even small restaurants. We don't want to be UGoTeat or any of that. We want people who are looking for wellness, for homemade, for the whole social, and rarely. So it's a bit of a different restaurant that we're looking for. So back to the chicken and egg. So we had to we're tweaking that now because then we think it'll be even easier to get more restaurants, even though we were focusing on individual cooks and chefs. We're still focusing on cooks and chefs. We're going to have a partnership with the commercial kitchen in West Cleveland coming up to bring on some local cooks and chefs and partner that they have committed hours in the commercial kitchen and then, go after marketing in that specific area. So we're going to try to do little mini pilots because it is just difficult with the chicken and egg, but with this situation right now. So we're just recruiting the restaurant is easier. The cooks and chefs if they're independent, then they still need to have sort of some business, like understand you have to have insurance, because you want to be protected and we need to be protected. And, you need to have a kitchen. So some of those things they may want to cook and love to cook, but they really want to cook out in their home. It's a little bit intimidating then to go to try to find the kitchen. So, those are some of the things we have to sort of hold some hands to and explain the concept. And it's a good way to start on the side if you're looking to one day own a restaurant, because you don't have the brick and mortar. I mean, that's the beauty of it, so you can do meals and all of that, but we have to have enough cooks and chefs consistently post their meals so that when people come to it, they'll keep coming and won't come and say, oh, there's nothing on there, and don't come back. So we're just continually working on what works. I'm also starting to go out to put a plan together more so to go out to institutions, and that's where I'm going to put out a new plan, sort of the evolution I was talking about earlier, to get more people to share in higher numbers. I think it's better if I can get a school system or a school period or maybe an apartment complex, a company and their wellness program to get users to use it for sharing for all of the social benefits that are there, and then that'll feed the chef population. So it's sort of going two parallel paths to balance the chicken and the egg dilemma.
Right. Yeah. Now, you mentioned the licensing component, and that's, obviously, I guess, state and local driven to make sure that these are compliant chefs and cooks with commercial kitchens. Are you providing any sort of special designation for those entities that meet your health standard? Because like you mentioned, there are lots of mom and pops that want the exposure, but there are also lots of mom and pops that use a lot of grease and a lot of products that aren't necessarily healthy. Are you making the cut at that level and eliminating some of those, or are they still within scope in your phase one of your rollout?
They're not in scope, but we're still putting our name out there. So we're going and actively recruiting. So I haven't had to beat anyone away and say, no, you don't meet our standards. But we're actively going and recruiting them now. And so they do meet our standards because we're not letting anyone on who doesn't. And now, and the standard is subjective, right? So I want you to make healthy food, fresh food. But an example is, let's say you make macaroni and cheese. If you're making it from scratch, I just love it, right? Because that's part of eating homemade food. Now, it's not the most healthful food. I mean, you could make it in certain ways, but I'm not saying it cannot be on there. If it's box craft macaroni and cheese, well, we're not selling that we're not selling processed foods on the app. We're not saying that you can't use, in your example, you can't use grease, but we are saying that we don't want a lot of processed and highly fat food. So it's all subjective. We want the whole benefit for our customers and clientele is that they're going to feel like they can see on the app some healthy food. So the foods that are on there now are like eggplant, stuffed peppers, and quinoa, whatever, or a type of stir fry. So there's some vegetarian and vegan and just general, sort of, as I've been using the term, vegetable forward types of meals. But there's a portobello, I was going to say chicken sandwich, but it's just a portobello sandwich, which looks like a chicken sandwich, it looks delicious. So there's different things like that will make UGottaEat a little more unique, because that is the standard.
Where you are now is you're starting to pivot, and let me just make sure I understand the pivot. With the pivot, are you now moving towards these institutions? Is that the pivot, or is there a new market that you see that could potentially leverage your platform?
The pivot is moving from the focus of the cooks and chefs and the restaurant. So I already had pivoted once to really add more of these restaurants to the cook and chef part. So I did that early on. That was one of the first sort of changes I did. And So I moved away from the independent chefs. So I'd say, probably only, like 10% of the chefs that we have on there are independent chefs, and the rest are restaurants. So I made that shift before, which is why now I have to make some adjustments on the app for that to work. It's still good. But now we're going to pivot back to where we started, which was the sharing and the independent chefs. So while I'm getting the app adjusted to accommodate restaurants, I'm really going to go back and focus on the sharing and the independent chefs, because that's where we started. Now I really want it to be sharing as a lifestyle, as a way of improving wellness for yourself, someone else, and for the earth. So it's a holistic approach, so that the sharing food and using the app is a holistic approach to health, wellness, and happiness. And so that's the pivot that I'm going to really start positioning the company. UGottaEat is a health and wellness company that promotes sharing as a way of wellness and happiness. And so that's a big shift. Before, I would say UGottaEat is like having a personal chef in your pocket. It's so that you can get, good, healthy foods, and it's a social networking platform. So now the pivot is becoming more of a movement, a lifestyle movement, and that it seems is really hard. Just like imagining at this wellness event, someone said, why would I want to eat someone else's food, which is like my number one question. And, people used to say that about Airbnb. Why would I want to stay in someone else's house that I don't know, and use someone else's towels, or why would I do that? Or why would I get in a car of someone I don't know? And so it's hard to change people's minds, but it's possible. We've seen it. We see it more and more every day. And so that's the pivot that UGottaEat is about to make. I would rather you confuse UGottaEat with some type of sharing app than one that's just commercially, like it's been a delivery service, that's just trying to get you something to eat no matter what. So small, and it's sort of getting back to our basics where we started, but a really big deal in how to approach the market.
To answer that question that keeps getting asked, is there a smaller subset of meals that could be a focus for the platform? Back in my early days, right after B school, I returned to my hometown in Alabama and launched a restaurant. My community, after I did a little demographic research, was heavily weighted towards people over 55. And the business was a pizza restaurant that delivered, which was the first restaurant to do that in this small community in rural Alabama. We had great success, but I noticed that nobody in the demographic, which made up most of the county, took advantage of this convenience. And it hit me one day when I took my grandmother to the doctor, and she was dealing with high blood pressure, diabetes, and the doctor, while I'm sitting there and with her in the waiting room, he was like, what did you eat today? Am I going to see the pressure go up or down? And he just went through all the things that he wanted her to continue to eat, and the light bulb went off. I went back and sat down, and we started refocusing a number of the pizzas to target that group with ingredients that were recommended by the doctor. And before I knew it, we were starting to see that hockey stick effect with that particular group that we hadn't had exposure to. Is there that type of opportunity where you narrow down to answer that question, why would you eat someone else's food? Well, these types of meals will reduce blood pressure. These types of meals will increase blood circulation. These types of meals will help with anxiety. And it gives you at least a direct conversation with people who have a meaningful reason to consume food that they really can't find anywhere else. And that's what I found even though it was rural Alabama, you're right, fast food had moved in, and those consumers who wanted the fresh ingredients, the natural food, the food that would help improve these conditions, there was nowhere to find it. And so there was this unique niche there that opened up for me, and I was like, wow, if you carve this niche out everywhere in America, you could probably build a pretty good business. Is there an opportunity to narrow that conversation down and answer that question? Yeah.
So that's really what I want You Gotta Eat to be. I want when anyone is looking for a healthy homemade meal, and they would be able to find it by, search or sort by what it is they're looking for, they would say, oh, let's see what's on You Gotta Eat. Because they know that would be a place that would basically curate the restaurants or the chefs or whatever in their area, but they could also they could always find something that met their need.
Right.
So that is the marketplace. I'm trying to build that marketplace, not as specific as you said, maybe not the meals, right? Not here's the 5 meals or the 10 meals or the whatever. But there is potential that, I do want to make sure that the cooks and chefs that we bring on have a wide range of offerings so that there's something for everyone. My goal is to build that kind of mass, right, so that there's enough variety so that there's something for everyone, wherever you are, sort of like you mentioned the app in China, wherever you are in the States, and one day we will be global, I'm sure. But wherever you are, you could pull your app. It's going to read your location on your phone, your GPS, and be able to show you where there are home fresh-made meals or participating restaurants that serve the type of food that you want to eat. And that is absolutely the goal.
So as you pivot, do you see your competitors being more like Blue Apron or Fresh Direct or Hello Fresh, those types of companies that are also aiming at providing healthy food and trying to deliver it conveniently to the end user?
So those are the competitors that I'll use when I'm talking like this. Like, yeah, but only lightly. They're not really, to me, direct competitors, but they're as close as you can get. There are some that are even, there's one called Josephine that was operating in California that I was using as a benchmark that most closely resembled You Gotta Eat, but it was the where I was going, but it was more the piece where you have cooks and chefs that could cook out of their homes. Or not even necessarily out of their homes, but, even if it was a commercial kitchen. But their model was that people were selling food out of their homes under the Josephine company name, and they just kept getting shut down by the state. And they literally just shut down maybe a couple of months ago. All of their members had gotten a note. They're still very actively trying to change the laws. You have so many people hungry, so many people need jobs. And that while we understand food safety is a need, there could be some other standards you put forward that allow people to cook and sell and share to other people without governments getting involved and jacking the prices up, making, and forcing you to go other places. So it's a really interesting movement that's happening. So I would more so affiliate myself with something like that, or a wellness company. What's also happening, though, is if you're holistic, like You Gotta Eat, I could not stand the amount of packaging I was getting that I had to throw away that was going into the earth. So you imagine you're getting these ingredients delivered. They're in separate baggies. They're in plastic this. They've got all of these, the refrigeration cooler packets that I don't even know how they break down in the earth. So every time you're getting a delivery, you're getting all of this packaging, boxes and coolers, ice, the things that keep them cold. And so while it might be convenient for me, one of our pillars is sustainability, right? And so that's more waste. It's not food waste, but it's waste. That model isn't for me. And it's also, if it's convenient, and a lot of people, you still have to cook it. And so when that was part of my benchmark. And so I really don't feel like they are competitors in the most direct sense. I may find a partner that one day we are delivering, but I'm trying to get the model down now that's more about, getting the right people on there, the right food, and making people aware that you can buy good food, you can share good food, you can help save the earth, you can help reduce the burden for other people and for yourself for cooking, and really get back to health and wellness by not eating all these processed foods with pesticides in them.
Did you face any opposition from local governments or health departments, and how did you handle it if you did?
I haven't faced any yet. I'm ready to, but I don't expect to. I intentionally try to follow all the laws when I was setting this up. Hence, you can share with anyone, right? You can invite people. There's no law against you inviting people over to your house to eat or to take your neighbor a casserole that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. So sharing is caring. So I'd be ready to fight that battle. And I've intentionally required my cooks and chefs to effectively have what their local government require them to have. And if they cook in a commercial kitchen, the commercial kitchen is going to require them to have. What is different is I've created a platform, an app, a place, a marketplace where people can come and find what they're looking for.
For those people that choose to share, is that a potential market that can be monetized? I've come across a few new sharing economy companies that match young people with some of our older citizens who want, help around the house or even just company, and they get paid by the hour. And I thought it was interesting where you have people who may want to ride to the doctor and then want them to stick around and, fix a few things in the house. Those individuals go in and just find people who enjoy community and enjoy conversation, and they get paid by the hour. Is there an opportunity to monetize your sharing community in the same way?
I have heard of other apps that have tried to do like a point system, like after so many points, so you create your own money or monetization, in a way, or you can buy points, and that way you buy in, potentially you would buy in the UGottaEat for $50, that gets you 50 points, and then you convert those points to exchange the meals. We explored things like that, but from what I can tell, governments are smart and they're hip to that, right? So for food especially, I have not been able to figure out a way that would make it directly from one to another, a way to monetize it like that. What I do think, what always in my mind was sort of the Facebook model. You got a big enough audience, then you can get sponsors and advertisers and all of that, so that the service would be free, but the access to the community for people to, I would still want the sponsors and everyone to be in this, in the mission, to understand the mission. You get access to the people, and so that they basically subsidize the marketplace.
This business sounds fairly complex. Do you have a board of advisors to help you navigate some of these issues? Because you got regulatory issues, you have issues related to food management, you got distribution opportunities, you got 2 or 3 different audiences that feed product into the system. It sounds like there's a lot of different expertise required to make this platform hum. What sort of advisors are you tapping into to make sure you don't run afoul of some of these regulatory issues?
Yeah. So I have a board of advisors. I have a great home cook, a businessman who is just, I know him more for his great cooking at home. I have a marketing advisor, financial management advisor, legal, another lawyer, a general lawyer. I have another lawyer who had specialized in some food services before at one point. So I think there's opportunity. I'm always on the lookout for people who, I actually just recently asked a friend, a lifelong friend, actually, I was like, I should be talking to you about it, because she does data, metrics, and management, Mike. So that's where I am now too. Like, where is the demographic? Who do we need to talk to? Sort of like marketing analytics, but hers tends to be in in healthcare. And so I was like, I need that type of advice. So I think it's important to, and then when I was trying to raise money and trying to think of different structures, my advisor who's a wealth manager, I was talking to him like every week. So definitely advisors are needed. I just can't think of it all on my own. No one can. So, and I think that advice to try to have someone in some of the major functions or specialties that you're on was really super smart. And I'm actually going to go back and find one other person who is high up in a food company. And, but I'm thinking I may want him to be more of a mentor than an advisor. So a slight nuance there, but yeah, so I'm definitely always looking. And that's another thing that you sort of miss out on when you leave corporate, or when I left corporate, because there was mentors and people everywhere. There's always someone over you, or maybe you're same level in a different department or in a different geography, someone you could talk to and ask, or get, find out the ropes to skip and the ropes to know. But when you're an entrepreneur, you're just naturally by yourself, and you have to put yourself out there and find the talent and look for advice. So that's a really big deal. But finding someone, and it may take a lot of thinking and keeping your eyes open, but really finding those people, explaining to them your concept, getting them excited enough that they're willing and anxious to help, to advise, So yes, definitely.
That's a terrific advice for entrepreneurs, to have that board of advisors. I know some research that I dug up said that companies with advisors tend to stay in business beyond 5 years, and those that don't tend to go out of business before 3 years. So the learning from someone else's mistakes is a terrific way to move forward. Is there any other advice you would pass along to would-be entrepreneurs, particularly those that are thinking about going into the sharing economy?
I would say the big learning that I'm having now is that everything takes a lot longer. So you have to sort of plan accordingly, even plan your expectations. Most entrepreneurs now that I'm in this community they're trying to change the world. They're trying to change something. Like they see a need and they're trying to make a change. And while change is constant, it's also hard. It is really hard to show people the value that or to convince people to do things differently. So I would say, you just have to have a persevering spirit and not one of fear. And that means to play bigger. And there was this book I read, and it was entitled Play Bigger or Playing Bigger, around how do you sort of not shrink into the landscape of everyone else? How do you play bigger? And it's really hard to do when you're just trying to figure out what the hell you're doing in the first place. Like, how do I used to have teams and staff and resources, and now I got to figure this all out by myself. From the advisor standpoint, you're never really alone. And then playing bigger is, again, if someone else can do it, you can too. I think, and literally for me, this pivot that I'm going through now, it's like, well, who am I to do this? Like, why are people going to believe me or agree with me or understand with me? And that is always the question, right? Like getting back to your why. Remember the why. There's being books on it now and everything. So when you keep answering your own why, you build the model. So it's become sort of a cliche to always, remember your why and get back to your why. But in the truest sense, if you ask yourself, why would I buy this from me? Why would I buy this from someone else? And just keep asking the why. Well, why? Well, why you? Why them? Because of this, because of that. And you come up with your data, with your stats, with your compassion, with the obvious, but it just, you have to open other people's eyes. So you just always have to stay true to where it is you're going. And I think that's why this pivot for me is a good one, because I'm coming back to where I started. Like, this was my aha moment, is where I'm coming back to now. Maybe I was getting too far away from my why, but it's all still there. And so it's compassion and sharing, and it works for everything, but it definitely works for food. So the sharing economy is, it's new as a commercial concept, but sharing is how that's how we live. That's how we've gotten to where we are. So I think it's just putting this construct in a new way that'll be very helpful to people. But so the advice is to just persevere, play bigger. And, now my advice to everyone is going to be to share.
No, I tell people all the time, but the African-American community has always had a sharing component as part of the community.
Yes.
In fact, we don't get civil rights change without the sharing economy, because Dr. King and all the people in Montgomery, Alabama, basically ran a Uber sharing car model in order to shut down the bus system in Montgomery. And that doesn't happen unless you bring that sharing nature to bear in order to get people from work and back home every day for a year and a day, in order for them to realize the value of letting people sit anywhere they want to on a bus. So you're right. Sharing can be powerful, life-changing on many different levels when you keep asking and answering the question why. This has been fantastic. I've absolutely enjoyed our discussion today, and I think the Gorillapreneurs in the audience are going to take so much from it. And I think the big things they're going to take are, you got to continue to ask the why. You've pivoted, pivot back, and then you've refocused on the core of what got you started in the first place. And I think every entrepreneur has to go through that cycle. And so there's a ton to take from this episode, and I absolutely appreciate you taking your time and spending that with us here. Can you tell the audience where they can find out more about UGottaEat and sign up and become a part of this sharing tribe that you're creating?
Absolutely. And Mark, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate what you're doing, especially being a fairly new entrepreneur. And just being in this new community, it is so helpful to talk to other people, hear other people's stories, get that encouragement and other ideas and other approaches. So thank you for having me. And everyone can find out more about UGottaEat on the letter U, not Y-O-U, but the letter U, GOTTAEAT, UGottaEat.com. And you can download the app from the Play Store and from the Apple Store. And you can start sharing now no matter where you're located. It's just purchased meals. We've only been recruiting in Cleveland. But if you are interested in also becoming a chef where you are, where we could start another hub, then certainly also reach out to me. So you can find all the information. You can email me at info@UGottaEat.com as well. And there's a million ways to get to me. We're on all social media. You Gotta Eat Something on Facebook, UGotta.eat on Instagram. And so we're findable, but just go to the website. I also have a blog. I blog every week on You Gotta Eat on the website on health and wellness and eating and just being well. Last week, I think we talked about getting enough sleep. So I blog on wellness items, and I also have a book it's called A Year of Me, and it's 366 daily affirmations to improving your well-being. It's on mindful eating. So we do affirmations, and I do those on social media. So if you follow me, those are other ways to get affirmations and to improve your wellness and to share and to get the app. So you got to eat. Excellent.
Well, thank you so much. And we're going to put all those different ways that you can get in contact with You Gotta Eat in the show notes. Guys, get in, sign up, and share today. If you want to share and create community, if you're in an apartment building, you're in a gated community, we're in a non-gated community. Get to know your neighbors, share, get together, build community, and more importantly, make that food healthy so that it can build strong bodies, strong minds, and that's the backbone for strong communities. Ms. Kinlow, thank you again, and we're looking forward to sharing this episode with our Gorillapreneur tribe.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Ms. Kinlow, for being on the podcast. Make sure you get to her website, UGottaEat.com, or download the app from Google Play or the Apple App Store. Thank you for listening to the Strategy Doctor Show, the show that is the performance-enhancing drug for your company's bottom line.